Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Strategy Gaming Dojo, where we find, learn, and play one more turn of the great strategy games. Currently, we are doing a kind of let's play tutorial, continuing from a tutorial of Gary Grigsby's War in the Pacific Admirals Edition. So far, we're going through in this let's play and setting up our allied forces in alphabetical order in the region. So we had made it to Borneo last episode. As you see here, the swampy lands of Tarakan, where evidently dinosaur bones have been compacted for 70 million years, producing oil. And that becomes very enticing to the Japanese. So they will be pushing down here to Tarakan. Now, when I left you last time, we'd kind of gone through everything here in Borneo except for a couple of things. I had promised to talk about these subs that are just north of Borneo up here, and we didn't do that. And I also promised to talk about these US Navy destroyers that are out here. So this kind of involves a little bit bigger discussion, which is the Philippines. Now, as you can see, the Philippines are really in the firing line immediately. If we look at the grand strategic map, we get out our pointer, as I love to do. You can see the Japanese will be coming from there and straight down from Formosa and hitting the Philippines immediately. I can tell you they also, kind of come this way. They're going to be coming after the Philippines full blast, as they did historically. I mean, that's how it happened. And it makes sense because the Philippines has such a nice strategic location here. Um, and when they do that, you are going to have all of these American forces here that, I mean, there are submarines, there are planes, there are ships, there are obviously ground units. You see kind of some of these dark NATO boxes here. So you have a lot of troops at Manila, at Clark Field, at Bataan. They're going to be trying to get out of here to some extent. Now, as I said last episode, we're going to play this historically. Douglas MacArthur is the general here. There's a long, fascinating story how that all came to be. But, he has an ego bigger than this island. And so he is not going to just let American troops bust out of here. And last time I talked about kind of gamey tactics and whatnot, and I don't want to, harp on it too much or bore you with it. I will just say this: I do think the game does a fairly good job, maybe even a very good job, of keeping you from getting too gamey by instituting this political points idea, right? And so you can't just take everything out of here. You got to pay for it. And you have very few political points at first. So it would be impossible to get everything out of here. But I will tell you when it comes to the Philippines, and I think the Cole spreadsheet reflects this, is well, as a matter of fact, I know it does. Uh, we're not going to be taking dedicated Filipino troops that have been trained by the Americans. We're not going to take trained or American troops that were completely dedicated to the Philippines out of here. But we are going to be taking some planes, some ships. Every one of your U.S. subs returns as it is right now to Manila that's out here. And the reason I'm talking about this now, even though we're not on the Philippines, we're actually going to be doing Burma this time. If you're like, well, huh? Yes, we will be doing Burma next, but I wanted to wrap this up by saying this task force out of Tarakan is going to Jolo. I'm going to call it Jolo. I'm sorry if that's not correct. I should probably look this up before I do it, but it looks like Jolo to me. Maybe it's Hollow, maybe it's Jolo. I don't know, but I call it Jolo just when I play the game. Now we're bringing this task force over here, and what have we done? We've got it's a CS for fuel. And why are we doing that? Because this is the base, whether it be out of Hong Kong, where you've got a bunch of British troops, or British ships that you're going to try to get out. The troops don't go anywhere really, but you have a lot of ships that flee. You have a lot of these American subs, as I mentioned. You have ships that are at Manila, 75 ships in port here. And this Jola is going to kind of be a little bit of a staging base to help get the heck out of here. We're going to put some fuel there. And that leads to a secondary discussion, which is these U.S. Navy ships. Okay, you have a light cruiser. Now, if you've gone down the Cole spreadsheet, or if you're just playing the game and you say, well, if we're going to be putting fuel out here and we're going to be trying to get a bunch of vulnerable ships, at least down to here, maybe refuel if they need to be. Part of the reason you would have fuel here is you would be running things at full speed to get the heck out of here, and you may take a turn, refuel them, and then get them going again. Uh, full speed in this game eats up a ton of fuel. So I'm not going to go. I was going to go up and show you the difference, but you can do that for yourself. I mean, full speed really gas guzzles you. And so we're kind of setting up this Jolo base as kind of just a refuel along the way. Um, that being said, now Cole has all of these ships going to Jolo and sitting. Okay. The reason being they're going to try to protect, this kind of area right here from subs. Japanese subs will immediately start appearing down here. Um, and he's going to kind of protect it that way. I go about it a little differently. I don't know what's right. I don't know what's wrong. Honestly, he's probably right, but this is just how I do it, and I'm going to explain it very quickly. Which is, we're busting tail out of Hong Kong, we're busting tail out of Manila. We're getting down here for a quick refuel. There are so many ships coming down here that, if a Japanese sub gets one, it gets one. I kind of look at it as flipping the tables. Well, I say one, maybe 6 to 8 or 10. I kind of think about it as flipping the tables. And that's why I do this the way I do it, which is this is fine. I have the Marblehead. Um, just get out of here. And I'll tell you why. And we haven't necessarily talked about victory value that much, but the Marblehead is worth 28 points. It's going to be worth, five or 4 or 5, maybe even more, depending on their point value, cargo ships that if they get picked off by a Japanese sub or two, so be it. I mean, it just is what it is. I don't feel like losing a light cruiser and dying on that mountain. Now I say the complete opposite when I talk about these U.S. destroyers down here. If you look at like the Bulmer, it's only worth 5 points. It's just not worth that much. These are U.S. destroyers that are not their top of the line. They don't, if you look, and we talked about this in the tutorial, it'll show up down here if they have radar, and you will be getting a lot of destroyers very soon that have radar. These do not, like the Bulmer. Now, I would send this with a cargo task force, maybe at some point. I would maybe have it run ASW, around Darwin or around Pearl Harbor or something. Um, they're not great though. I mean, they're two. There are two. So, you will very shortly have fours. The British already have eights. This is out of 10, essentially. Um, these are expendable ships. They're worth 5 points. They're just not worth that much. And there's a real chance that they could snag a Japanese sub or two. Now, Japanese submarines are valuable not just because of the points, really, is because the Japanese don't have that many, really, in comparison. This is all relative. They don't have that many, and they don't replace them, really. So when you get a Japanese sub or two, it makes a difference, because the subs are just going to absolutely wear you out down here, if they get down here to Sydney or Brisbane or all of the shipping out here through the islands. So if you can nab a few of these suckers up here when they're trying to get your cargo ships and do whatever. Let's get a few of them. So I separate each one of these destroyers out by themselves. You see here ASW Jolo, uh, ASW Jolo. And if I take this down, you can see I'm running patrol zones. One, two, three, one, two, three, blah, 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 blah. Now, something else I wanted to bring up with this about the patrol zone. You'll notice in the earlier regions that we set up, like Alaska and Australia, a lot of times these patrol zones go boundary one, somewhere in the water, boundary two, somewhere in the water, boundary three, back to home, linger for a day, and refuel. That's all well and good for low fair lower endurance ships like minesweepers maybe, or things that are going to stay close to base. When you're out here in the heat of the action, you don't want this thing going boom boom and with 60% of its gas still in the tank coming back, hanging out for a day and refueling. It kind of, it's a waste. You don't want that. So you can see right here that our patrol zone, well, it's showing it's going to take 20 this time. Will normally take 18, right? You can get like 6 or 7 of these patrols. I guess it would be like 6. You can get 6 of these patrols where this thing will do that before it's even close to being out of gas. And when it does get out of gas or getting close to out of gas, the game automatically will send it back to its home port. So rather than going one, two, three, refuel, one, two, three, refuel, we're going to go one, two, three, one, two, three, one, and we do this like 6 or 7 times. When it gets close here, you can either do this manually if you want to. I never would. It will limp its way back to Tarkin here and get some gas. To be honest with you, by the time this thing makes, that many rotations, we may think about pulling it back. Because what I do with these destroyers here, you're going to have Japanese hit this island on turn 1 or 2. They're going to start getting aircraft here in the Philippines very quickly. This could very possibly be in their range. When that happens, I just move them back here, you know, and then I'll move them back here or back here. I just keep scooting them back. Now, another advantage about having them individually here is they don't present as big of a target. If you have them all in a kind of a task force with themselves or with that light cruiser, that's going to alert the AI. Its red lights are just going to go off. Uh, by the same token, having them up here and out here where they might be in range is going to draw some of these Japanese bombers and maybe keep them off of your cargo task forces that are coming out of Hong Kong or out of Manila, because they are higher value. So if the Japanese are running, naval attack, one of the key factors in that commander discretion is hitting your higher value targets. Well, that's good, or it could be good, because destroyers are very fast. This is a 33 speed. It's going to be hard to hit, as opposed to your speed 10, convoy coming down here. And it'll be interesting to see. The Japanese bomber AI may pick that convoy. It may not. It may say, hey, I've got a destroyer here. I can tell you that human players, when they see a destroyer, like a ship that's not a convoy, a cargo ship, they get very excited and will generally go after them as opposed to the cargo ships. And that might be smart, it might not be smart. I will tell you that these destroyers have a lot better chance of not being hit than your slow moving cargo. So that was just the thinking behind that. I wanted to go through that very quickly. If you want to see kind of the patrol zones I set up, I did one here, one here. Um, I did one over here. You know, the Japanese will be trying to get subs in from every different angle and direction. This one's kind of all around Jolo here. You know, maybe pick something off there. And then the final one is back here a little bit. So it's just kind of protecting our ships coming out of Tarkin. So that's that. Now, the other exciting thing that, you know, popped up this last turn and that we set up were these submarines. Now, these are all Dutch subs. They're in gray, and we have two different kinds. We have these K, you know, so this is like KXVI. What's K? Is K a 50? No, that's L. Oh boy, I can't remember my Roman numerals. Well, I know this is 10, 5, and 1. I know that's 16. I want to say L is 50 and is K 100? No, C is 100. Hell if I know. It doesn't really matter, does it? Let's click on this for a second. Of course, it's the KXIV class. Um, so you have these two different classes. You have these guys. I think it's all three of these are this KXVI class. And then you have back here the 019 class. Okay, so they're a little different, and you can read through what they are. The Dutch subs early in the game, it's not so much that they're better, you know, they are better. The reason they're better, their torpedoes are a lot better. The American subs, you know, do a pretty good job of getting in on Japanese convoys and you know, they're okay subs, they're fine. They're nothing like what you have later in the game. But they have duds, and we talked about that with the torpedoes before. The Mark 14s were crap torpedoes, so you'll hit a lot of stuff and it won't blow up. The Dutch don't have that problem. The Dutch are running. Does it tell? Yeah, they've got Mark 2Ds. It looks like. Oh, he's out of ammo. Okay, he's out of torpedoes. So you know they need to retreat back and go back to Swerebaya. God, I totally butchered that, didn't I? After the guy sent me the audio link. Swerebaya. Swerebaya? Okay, whatever. Well, this brings up the kind of major point here. Swerebaya is the level 7 port. Is I don't, you know, Batavia is not there. It's a 6, right? We'll build that up to a 7, but at the start here, Swerebaya is the level 7 port. This is where all of the Dutch subs will have their home base. So this guy's floating around here. Let's see about this guy. Oh, okay. So he's got mine. Well, okay. Oh, I see. They've got these torpedoes up here. The 53.3 centimeter W1. Okay, if you say so. I don't even know what that means. I knew I usually kept these guys out here. Oh, and they have it too. Okay, these are the Mark II-D mines. I'm so sorry. Got a little confused there. These are their torpedoes. And you see their ammo here. And that's the main thing. You know, I've said before, the armaments on things, you can play this game without really looking at them, other than to figure out if you're out of them. You know, I mean, if you don't have them, and this guy's out here under the water acquiring Japanese convoys, but he can't do anything about it. You know, it's like no torpedo. Hey, we sighted him. You know, wave hello. So I followed Cole, you know, exactly when it came to these submarines. He's got them floating a patrol out here, which makes sense. You know, this is a nice patrol. Oh, one thing I will back up and say I forgot. The destroyers, max react 3, you know, so if they're here and they, the something Japanese is sighted up here, hopefully a submarine, they will react to it up to three. So I just wanted to point that out. Anyway, back to the sub. This is what you're going to be doing with subs 98% of the time. There are some mine laying subs, and that's fine. We just saw that, right? The 2D mines, they were out of them. So you can lay mines with subs, and maybe you want to do that. We will be doing that with some of our subs, but none of these. So they're going to be running patrol. Subs are always on a max reactive one. Um, and they acquire something. If it's not dangerous, they could come to the surface if they want and fire. They've got other armaments generally, but usually they're going to be, of course, submerged, looking for things, shooting at them, getting out of there. Um, and so they run these patrol zones, and you will just be running patrol zones with your subs. There's nothing better than when we do we resolve a turn and we get to those combat animations and you see the sub under the water, and it's like it fires, it's torpedo, it tells you all of that stuff. It's a lot of fun to watch. That's why I like the combat animations. But you'll see there's the patrol zone for this guy. Then we've got one here. Then we have destroyer. Remember, our destroyer coverage is here and here. Um, so that's that guy. And then we've got north here because the Japanese will be coming down here. They will try to take Brunei. They will be taking all of these places eventually, but we try to hit everything we can hit. I think oh, we don't set this one north yet. So these guys are protecting Sarawak, kind of these guys. This guy, oh, this is the guy I was thinking about. He's going to go out here to the southern tip of, what is Vietnam, and try to pick off anything coming this way. Because the Japanese have already landed here at Kota Baru, and we'll talk about these other Dutch subs that we have here when we do Malaya, and the Malay Peninsula. But this guy, we're going to send up here, and as the Japanese try to reinforce, as they try to, get troops over here, planes over here, ships, whatever, we're going to try to pick them off. As you can see, it's a very nice spot, right? If you were coming this way, you were going to try to get over here to Malaya and try to, bring something here. This is just a nice little patrol zone. And so that's what we're doing with these subs out here. I love the sub part of the game. We'll get into more about the subs. The important thing is learning to set up patrol zones, and you can always clear your patrol zone. And again, don't waste 2 hours trying to get the exact hex that Cull does, or you see here, or whatever. Eyeball it. You know what I'm saying? It all makes sense, right? We're running this thing from just off the, what is the southeastern tip of Vietnam. It's, here, it's popping down here for a minute, so we have some like coverage up and down, and then it's going over here. It's not rocket science, right? Just kind of use your best instincts where to set those. Now, with all of that said, let's go talk about Burma. Um, Gosh, how many times have I said that in my life? That would be the first time. So, Burma, excuse me, I'm going to have a drink here for a second. So, Burma is a very, very interesting part of the map. Let's just because I like to get the pencil out, let's get the pencil out. You have got Colombo pushing supply here. You've got Calcutta pushing supply here. A big part of the reason we're pushing all that supply is you've got the Japanese right here, and they would like nothing better than to take Burma and then start pressuring India Okay, let's get out of the drawing because the drawing's ridiculous. Um, what I'll do is use the preset tools. This is better. But the main reason, okay, I mean, if protecting India wasn't enough, the real main reason of protecting Burma is because the Burma road runs here, here, and it gets supply here. That's why Burma is so important. And this road that runs from Rangoon out to Tongai here in China, that if you control that as the allied player, you automatically get free supplies every turn. It's called the Burma Road um, rule, essentially. If you look at the rule book, there's just a little section that says, hey, if you control from here to here, and we'll go look at it, you get extra supply. It will just appear. So this is, oh, did I say Tangui? I'm sorry. I was thinking about Tangui. This is Su Yung. So Su Yung is here. You can trace this road all the way back to Mandalay, and that is not the Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas. That is the real Mandalay. All the way down here, I guess, either by rail or by road. The Burma Road goes all the way here to Rangoon. So we're going to be dumping tons of supply and fuel into Rangoon, hoping it spreads out here. Now, question how much of it actually will bleed into China, but you get the free stuff if you just control this area. So this kind of it's another kind of crescent, right? This crescent here, really starting from, I would even start it from Mulmine, but definitely from Pegu all the way up here to Mandalay, Lashio, all the way through to Seyung. You've got to protect it as much as you can. Now, the Japanese have a lot more in resources than you do. I will point out something. There was a comment that came in about gaminess, and um, it talked about how if you too strongly try to defend Rangoon, it can really screw up the AI. Now, historically, the Japanese didn't have as much problem as they do, I feel like, in the game here, taking Rangoon if you play it right as the allied player. That being said, I don't feel that guilty about it. I think it's one of the major uh, mistakes that the Allies made was not even stuffing China more full. They should have been building roads, doing everything they could to get more Chinese supply in here. So defending this, I don't feel too badly about that. It seems actually kind of obvious to me that if you're the Allies, what are you going to do here? You've got the Himalaya, you're up in here to Tibet. Um, you're not going to be moving anything this way. You've got very rough terrain here. You're probably really the only way to help China as the allies, given the current situation, is to get enough in here to move it down this road. You know, it's obvious enough that it's its own rule in this game, and it's something that the Allies did do. Just question whether they tried to protect it enough or did it enough. So we are going to try to protect Rangoon. Are we going to be silly about it and bring every extra force we have in India to do that? No, we're not. Um, we certainly are not. But we are going to do our level best to protect it. So let's go through some of what happens here. So Burma goes all the way down to here, all British bases. Part of the British Empire. It's pretty incredible, right? How big the British Empire was. No wonder the sun never set on it. So out here in Victoria Point, we've got a base force. Look, we could try to get it out of here. You're not going to get it out of here. You could put it to move and march. The Japanese are immediately going to, be bombing Victoria Point. They are also going to be doing the same with Mergui. Easy for me to say. Mergui. Okay, tomato, tomato. Mergui, however, I put them to march to go to Pagu. It's it's 414 miles of what I would imagine would be some really crazy terrain, foresty jungles and whatnot. I say foresty jungles, kind of different stuff. Come on. Uh, I'm sure this would not be an easy 400-mile march. They will also be getting bombed from Bangkok. The Japanese have a lot of stuff. To look at all this bright red down here. Um, they're probably not going to make it. So it is what it is. Now, the only one Cole says to definitely bring out is this base force. We're doing that, marching them to Pagu. They could possibly get out. Now, when I first started playing this game, I didn't worry about gaminess, of course. I was just like, I'm going to save every last man. And so I ran like task force, like amphibious task forces to Tavoy and tried to like get these guys out and whatever. And again, it's kind of what we talked about last time. A, it's not historically accurate. B, it's not very smart from a game perspective. If you lose some transports trying to get these guys out, what a waste of time. I mean, it's 16 assault strength. Again, good thing they're pixels, these 204 guys. Uh, but for game purposes, like trying to go save them makes no sense. Just don't do it. It doesn't really make any sense. Now, of course, you're going to try to get a base force out. I mean, this base force has support. It's even got some like 16 aviation support. That's a nice unit. By all means, march this thing up here, but don't be sending transports over here trying to save these guys. Doesn't make any sense. Now, Mole Mine is the first place where you start to kind of have a resistance to whatever the Japanese are going to do. You have these infantry units down here. You got an 11, but you have a 54. Now, I mean, this is a nice force, right? It's a brigade. It's an infantry unit brigade. You've got like 800 guys on the ground that are pure infantry, and you've got the support units. So you're talking about, 1,300. You got some guns. Um, this is a pretty good force, and we're going to leave it here at Mole Mine because this is where we're going to be trying to stop the Japanese from essentially jumping, over here to the coast. And then they've got transportation, they've got a major road, they've got a minor railway. Our ultimate defense kind of starts at Pegu because that's where they have to come across a river or at least what is this, kind of an inlet from the sea that turns into a river. Either way, it's going to disrupt their troops when they try to come across it. So we're going to build up Pegu. Um, we will be building up Rangoon, but it'll be kind of a mixture and match here. You put them in Pagoo, they have a better shot if they're, when this is across the river. And then if they get knocked back, they can just retreat back to Rangoon, where we will have a kind of die to the last man Alamo defense at Rangoon. So we've got these guys here now. I think one of these we move somewhere. Hold on. Yeah, it's this 11 assault strength. We're sending them up to Pagoo. Okay, they're part of the first division, and I will say that there's the chance that we could put this whole first Burma division together. Um, because we're all in this little area, Molmine, Rangoon, Tangui, Rangoon, Molmine, I mean, they're all kind of right here, which makes sense. They're the first Burmese division. And so we may try to eventually put them together. But for the time being, we're taking them up to Pagoo. We're leaving the bigger force here. And also, we're, going to be building up our fortifications as fast as we can. We're not going to build anything else here because we want everything going in to building our fort. Um, and this doesn't really have a port worth, thinking about. It does have an airfield, excuse me, but Rangoon's so close that it's just, it's not worth having anything there. Now let's talk about Pagoo for a second. Pagoo, as I said, is your first big well, Malmines, if that's your first line of defense, this is your first major line of defense. They got to get across the water. Um, and so, we're going to build this up to the best of our abilities, the best we can. I don't think it's gamey to build Pagoo up. It should be built up. It's on a major railway. It connects, as does Rangoon, but it even has more major railway heading north than Rangoon. It also has a major road that goes straight to Mandalay. It's a very important base. So here we are going to build up the airfield and build up the fortifications. Now you could have a question about the airfield because we're going to be bringing most of our aviation support into Rangoon. So we have a 1 here at Pagoo and we have um, a 4 already built here at Rangoon. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. I'm going to put everything into our fortifications, and we're going to be running all of our planes out of Rangoon. So right now, at Pagoo, not a whole lot to talk about. We've got a assault strength of 28, an assault strength of 12, altogether 40. What is there really to talk about? Um, these secondary places back here. Bassine, we are going to be marching. We don't have a garrison requirement, and we talked about this last time about garrisons. That's really important to look at for a secondary place like this. There's just nothing going on at Bassine. Could the Japanese sail something up here and land amphibiously? Sure, but we're going to see that. I mean, we would see a task force of that size, and we'll just bring troops back over here. Let's get the task force out. We're going to move them over to Pagoo, so we have even more building forts. We also have Prome. Prome is another place that just doesn't really matter. Now we're bringing these guys. This is Tangu. We're going to bring them over to Tangu, so we're on our Burma road. These guys sit here, and the reason Cole, so this is an 11, I mean, it's kind of a nothing, but the reason Cole says to leave that there is to defend against a paradrop, which is actually a good point, right? You've got a lot of Japanese stuff here. Eventually, they'll be moving planes north. They could have a transport plane, which is something we haven't talked a ton about, but they could do a trans or a paradrop back here and kind of put you in trouble. Now all of a sudden, they take Tangu, and you don't have the Burma Road anymore. So you're just kind of leaving this small 11 strength force back here for that eventuality. Now, Rangoon we'll talk about in a minute. I'm going to save that for last. Tengu has the first of our flying tigers. I left a couple of them here for a reason. Well, one is Cole leaves this group here. I would like to, spend a whole episode talking about the flying tigers. These guys impress me so much. They volunteered, before the U.S. even declared war, they volunteered to go into the U.S. military. Then, as they were part of the U.S. military, the Army, they volunteered to go over here to Burma. I mean, totally volunteer. They weren't forced to. Roosevelt asked for volunteers, for experienced pilots to join the Army and then to go over to Burma to help the Chinese, essentially, to help the British, to help the Burmese, but to help the Chinese. And as you will see here, this squadron of flying tigers, first of all, they will eventually be flying P-40E Warhawks. And this is as we talked about with Alaska and the upgrades. You would much rather your Warhawks come here and upgrade out of your uh, out of your A A3 fighter. You want to get that out, get your Warhawk in. That's why we're not upgrading in Alaska. This is right in the heat of the battle. You've got 21. You've actually got a lot more than that. I think you start with 79 altogether. Here's another squadron of them that I have transferred the bulk out of, but 5 were being repaired. Um, we transferred them over here to, I want to say Kunming. Is that right? Well, we can just look. There it is, Kunming. We've got the little air symbol here. And sure enough, here they are. There are 20 of them. But as you can see, they're attached to the Chinese Air Force. So you're like, well, that's weird. It's a U.S. Army squadron attached to the Chinese Air Force. But these guys were volunteers. You know, these guys had balls bigger than your head to go do what they did. Now we'll eventually be taking them here and moving them even further to run cap over all of our Chinese units because the Chinese just essentially don't have an air force at the start of the game. So they're just bombed. They're ground attacked by Japanese bombers at will. I mean, they just don't have anything out there. So we've transferred one squad out here. We've got a squad here. Now, Cole leaves them here. I, okay, and this is the remnant of the one that we moved to China. I generally take these guys and move them down to Rangoon as well, and I'll show you why in a second. Um, and then we took one of the squadrons, and they are in Rangoon. Here they are. There are 19 of them. They're running a 60 cap, so of course their primary mission's escort, fine. They're running a 60 cap. We're running that at 15,000 feet, as you can see here. Why we would do that? Because we have the same maneuverability, we might as well. Now at Rangoon, we also have 15 Buffaloes, and they will be doing their business. They're running at 15,000 feet for the same reason. Now, we may eventually move them up and down in altitude so they're not both at the same altitude. We might want something lower. Now, you see, we've got this bomber group here at Rangoon. We are actually going to do a bombing run. You're like, wow, okay. We're doing that at I'm not going to say this correctly. I want to say it's Chiang Mai. Chiang Mai, okay. This base right here, we are just going to randomly bomb it. Not so randomly. On Cole's spreadsheet, he asks you to take this ground unit and take Chiang Mai over. Or no, I guess that's a W. Shanghai over. We're not going to do that. I don't do that. I bring everything back to Tangwai because I just do. But the spreadsheet says go attack this. As part of that, you bomb their ground units. We have not done that yet. I just wanted to show you how you do that. Ground attack, select the target. We did that. Now we've got 40 on training. Let's just do that 0, and then we'll set them to training later so we get all 3 out to bomb, hopefully. Current altitude's 10, max range. Let's set that back to 7. That's plenty, right? That's plenty of range because we're going here. This is normal and the range where we have them set. Uh, Now, one of the reasons I said I'm going to be bringing these other flying tigers down here, here's their command group. Um, this is the 221 Group RAF, so it is not their command group yet. See, it's the Chinese Air Force command. This squadron is also the Chinese Air Force command, but we're going to buy them out. 54 points to buy them out. We will be transferring them. Not the first turn. We've got them up. Um, Not up, actually. We've got them training the first turn. We're going to wait till some more aviation support gets here because Rangoon currently does not have enough. You see it here in red. It's a 20 aviation support. We need 39. We will be moving things in there to get more aviation support. Um, Otherwise, in Rangoon, we've got a few things going to Pagoo. We've got forts being built. We've got airfields expanding. We're expanding the port. Um, Now, Cole does not expand the airfield. I assume that's because he wants more going into port and fort. Uh, but I do this because I don't really run any aircraft out of Burma anywhere other than Rangoon. Now he does. He does some up here, to Tangu. We'll be bringing all the aviation support we can to Rangoon. Now you may say, well, okay, why do you kind of do it that way? One thing is the 221 Group RAF. If you look at it, the air headquarters, its command radius is only 3. We're expecting to get upgrades. We will need replacements if possible. 1, 2, 3 doesn't get you out here. So you really need all your aircraft here if they're going to be part of the 221, which is the only air command that we've got. Um, Meanwhile, this other group is going to go find Chinese air command. I think it goes up here to Chongqing, to be honest with you, but we'll deal with that when we get to China. Now, a little further north up here, um, a place like Magui, we're going to move these guys around a little bit. Well, you don't see this yet, but we will because there's no garrison requirement, and these are right on our quote unquote road. Um, as I said, uh, oh, this is McTilla, or, well, I think I said that close enough. This group's going to Mandalay. The reason being, Mandalay actually starts with a garrison deficit, which is, kind of surprising, but it does. So we immediately get this unit here up there to meet the garrison requirement. But then, meanwhile, we're moving this anti-aircraft down to Rangoon. Now, let's talk about anti-aircraft for a second. These AA units, you want them at your big cities that have big ports, that have transports coming in, coming out, that are obviously going to be bombed by the Japanese to bomb the port, to bomb the airfield. That is not what's going to happen at Mandalay. Um, there's no port here, obviously. There is a size 2 airfield, but we're not going to be running anything out of it. You get this AA when you see that symbol and it's up here someplace like this, you get it immediately to a place like Rangoon. The other thing we're moving down there is the Burma Command. Most of our troops in theater here are going to be at Rangoon. Let's get those command bonuses down there to Rangoon. Other than that, there's nothing earth-shattering out here. I think Lashio we're building up the forts, so this guy stays here. We talked about Prome. We've got an infantry unit. It's sitting there for the time being. We may revisit that. Um, Up here, we've got a base force. It's going to be building a fort. But really, the main thing to remember is Rangoon, Pegu, and this Burma road. And so with that, I think we've covered enough for this time. I'm going to try to keep these under an hour. Um each time, sometimes it's not possible if you have a massive place. But we talked about those U.S. destroyers down in Borneo this time. We talked about the subs, kind of that sub patrol that we got going on, and Dutch subs in general. They go back to Surabaya. We talked now about Burma. We've set up all of our stuff in Burma. I think next time we jump over to Canada and we'll start talking about Canada, those crazy Canucks. But this has been a lot of fun. It always is. We're moving now through the map. Heck, we'll be to the seas by next time. As always, I appreciate it. If you enjoyed this, you haven't already, please subscribe. I would appreciate that. I've got new things going up on the channel all the time. I also will be jumping on Twitch sometime soon. I may do some of this setup if you guys, have nothing better to do than watch me set up these troops on Twitch. I'll be doing that, but I'll also be doing more. Uh, what's the best way to call it? More popular new games over there, like Crusader Kings 3. I may do some of that. Just games I like to play that are fun games that maybe aren't quite as, let's move this tile here to there kind of games. And don't get me wrong, Crusader Kings, most people would say that's a fairly complicated game, but of course, you're watching me put together all of our troops here at War in the Pacific. So anyway, I've rambled enough here at the closing. I always appreciate it. Thank you for Strategy Gaming Dojo. I'll talk to you next time.